Oh, God damn it. We're here. We're back. This is the 2-month review. Hold on. I need to.
Are you okay, Chad?
No, I am not okay, Rachel. I am not okay at all. This is we're getting to the bottom, hopefully, and that there'll be ways back up soon. my mental health is at very low points. I am forgot that we were going to be doing this immediately, and so I was like all blissed out in my Corona gear, and now I'm here. But for anyone, yeah,
Oh
wow,
man,
this is a weekly podcast brought to you by Open Learner 3%. We break down a big book. We take a big book, Dreams Part by Rodrigo Frazan and Will Vanderheiden right now. Break it down bit by bit, section by section, talk about it, discuss it, analyze it, drink a lot, make jokes, and try and get through this fucking quarantine coronavirus as best we could. This week, I'm joined by Rachel Cordasco. We may have Brian soon. He's on his way, so he might come, but maybe not. So, Rachel, how are you doing? It's been a while. I'll make myself proper. You banter, you vamp.
Okay. Yeah, homeschooling now, like everyone else with kids, and trying to do my day job and trying to finish my book on SF and translation.
I was going to ask, how is the book coming?
You know, it is. They said, how long is your book going to be? And I said, 80,000 words. It's 120,000 words now.
It's a little bit longer.
I need to cut a lot, so I'm cutting, and it's hard.
They don't want to print it all and make it more comprehensive.
I emailed my editor and I was like, "Is it okay if it's going to be like really, really long?" And he said, "Well, it'll get more expensive." And I'm just like, so I'm going to send him like 95,000.
Yeah, that's not bad.
And I'm going to say, can you just you cut stuff? Because I can't. I've already cut like 20,000 words and I don't know where else to cut.
For anyone that hasn't heard about it or is listening for the first time, can you describe the book?
Yeah, so it's going to basically be 14 chapters. Each chapter is on a different source language. The science fiction and fantasy that has been translated into English from that source language. So there's one on Arabic, Chinese, Hebrew, Russian, and it's basically just like 2 sentences about each book. It was shocking how much there was. I honestly did not expect that there would be that much, but once I started scratching the surface, I've got a chapter on Japanese SF and translation.
Imagine.
It was like 60 pages long.
Yeah.
So
I like choosing books that you don't want to highlight, or are you trying to make the descriptions shorter?
So that's the thing. Like when I started Arabic, because it comes first, there's Arabic and Chinese and Czech. So I actually explored each book kind of in detail. And then I got to French and I thought, I can't do this.
No.
So I had to squeeze each one down to 2 sentences. But I think at some point I have to just cut things and just not mention some, because I'm going to include a list at the end of each chapter. They'll be in the list, but I honestly, and I've combined things. If I could let loose, this book would be seriously 500 pages.
Yeah. We have a really good reference tool.
That's what I was wanting it to be, and I feel like I'm more toward the reference end of the spectrum, and Illinois is more toward the we want people to buy it kind of end of the spectrum. So we're trying to meet in the middle, and they're very nice about it. But I was really always envisioning it as an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're gonna do. But they wanna publish it. They're excited about it, so I'll cut stuff. It's fine.
Yeah. That's still fantastic that coming out and that you can work on it and slowly but surely as we're all home.
Well, it's weird because like I told my husband, if I'm going to be homeschooling the kids like 5 days a week, I need the weekends.
Yeah.
Like the weekends are mine. And he said, okay.
Yeah, you need to figure out. Everyone needs to figure out good co-parenting techniques. Yeah. Otherwise, this is going to end badly.
I said I'm not going to be able to do this if I don't get the weekend. I don't know what I'm going to do. So he was great about that. Yeah,
that's really good. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So, how are you enjoying the dreamed part? You finished it, correct?
Yeah, but it was a while ago.
Same.
I mean, it's just so great. Like, it's such a weird like time like warp thing that when you get in it, you don't realize how much time has passed, and like you're reading, you're like, whoa! I mean, it's really just an experience. It's not like the kind of book you just read a little and then read a little. It really sucks you in, and yeah, it's so unlike anything else you're gonna ever you're gonna read. So
I have a question, because we did the first season of the Invented Part, which you were on as well, but it was prior to his tour, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
It was summer. I remember it being very hot, and Brian always put me in like lemonade with like vodka to drink during our things, because it was so goddamn hot. So do you want to tell a story about being able to interview him?
That was outrageous. Like, I still can't believe it happened. You're just so nice enough to ask me, and I made it happen to get childcare and go to Chicago. And I interviewed him at Volumes Books, and he was just so nice. I asked him, all the questions I'm sure he was expecting, and he was so nice about it, answering them. And it was just great to like meet him. He was recommending all kinds of things to me, and I think he's the one that put The Invention of Morel in my hands.
Oh,
and he was like,
I knew there was something. Yeah,
he was like, you need to review Casares, and I was like, who? And he was like, here, put it in your hands now. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, he's awesome. You've read that now, right? Like, that book is spectacular. So I don't know that I don't know where I've told this story. I tell it to my students. No, I usually don't even tell it to my students. But it's out there. But after we had third placement on Lost, way back in the Lost days, and it was at Delkey Archive, and became friends with Greg Nations, who was running like the showrunner for Lost. He would ask at various points in time for recommendations of books that they would use in the show. And when he wrote his episode that I believe was nominated for an Emmy, or it might have been the one that wasn't nominated for the Emmy, I can't remember, because I think he wrote 2 or 3. But anyway, it was one of his episodes, and he's like, what book should I include? And I said, you should Ballast by Philip K. Dick, Crying Lot 49, and The Invention of Morale. And so he's like, well, we're not including Crying Lot 49 because that's like too on target that was like, he made some reference to like, no, that's already been discussed, and that one's off the table for various reasons. It's like, that makes sense. But he's like, Ballast is one of his favorite books. He's like, I'm definitely including that because it's a perfect Lost book of like, what do you believe? What's real? What's not real? And how do you choose to believe in what you choose to believe in? It's like an Invention of Morale I hadn't heard of. So they got a copy from New York Review of Books and read it. And he's like, this is perfect. They gave it to Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof, and they're like, yes, this book is a perfect Lost book.
It is perfect. Yeah.
Doesn't know what's happening. There's all these like images, can't connect to anyone. It's so ideal. And so when that came out, when that episode came out, there were a bunch of people in like chat rooms being like, this is clearly where they stole the whole thing from. This is where they stole the entire show. No. But they were always like, it was funny working with them because they would send messages and being like, man, you make us look really smart. Like, we're really bookish for having like including these things in here, like whatever else. But that book was one of my favorite ones.
Was it the blonde hair guy who was reading The Invention of Morale?
I believe the Sawyer.
Okay. Yeah. I forget all the names. I don't know.
I might be wrong about this, but I think John Locke is reading Valis because he's the character that has faith in the island and everything. And so the counterpoint to like, how do you,
Right.
the Philip K. Dick ballast thing is all about like, how do you believe in something you think you know when you know that you've been both insane and a drug addict? And
Right.
like that your own narrative isn't trustworthy, but yet you had this experience that you 100% believe happened, and you have some empirical proof of, but like nevertheless, like you are a former, or I guess always schizophrenic, but not schizophrenic at the moment, but someone who's had schizophrenic breaks and was like a heavy drug user. So yeah, I love that book. I love Philip K. Dick.
He's so great.
I have 2 books of his I never had heard of that I found at the Strand last time that I thought about reading during this quarantine lockdown, but I haven't been able to get into.
It might be too depressing. Like, don't read. Like, I hope no one's reading.
Of Death is one of them.
Which one?
A Maze of Death.
Oh no, but don't. I hope no one's reading Kafka or who else? Who else is really good? Don't read Kafka right now. That is a bad idea. It's just.
There's that new collection of short stories coming. The collected Kafka, or whatever it's called, Lost Writings, I think, something to that effect. But
I mean, he's only for reading in happy times, I can tell you. I tried to read the Trial, I think, when I was in college and I was in a very low point, and I thought, let me read some Kafka, and I was like, whoa, this is making me much worse. I need to stop.
Everything is hopeless.
Yeah, and then I was like, well, what can I read now? And then I realized that everything is like really like all this good literature, none of it's happy. Like, I don't know what I was thinking.
No, I've been trying to find things that are funny. And right now, Henry Green's working, Muriel Spark, definitely.
Yeah.
John Cheever, things that are old, out of time. I think I mentioned this on here last week. Like things that are like not from our period, but like 50s, British, something about that. Like it seems, I can get it. Or like, suburban America, but like that seems safe and okay. There's no cell phone. There's no like global anxiety in the same way. I mean, there's wars. There's been wars equally like destructive, not far more so in a way, but like at least that's something I've settled my peace with, and that's not like happening currently in the same way.
Well, you just made me think. Well, the what you should be reading now is who's the guy who wrote Tristram Shandy?
Lawrence Stern.
Lawrence Stern and Henry Fielding. That's it. Don't need to read anyone else now.
The other suggestion I might, if I ever decide to write again, which doesn't seem likely at the moment, the thing I do want to recommend is Nicholas Mosley's Catastrophe Practice series, because it's all about how people can rewrite themselves in society at times of great catastrophe. That there's, when things all fall apart, is the moment where there's like a chance to really make things better, or to like see a new light. And that I would recommend, because I want to come out of this and have a revolution.
Yeah. Things need to change.
Yeah.
But I'm the kind of person that sits here and complains about it and doesn't do anything. So I hope other people make some good changes.
I want to believe that I've been groomed for this moment in time. This is what I've been waiting for.
This is what you were born for, Chad.
Born for the revolution, the post-COVID. Anyways, let's talk about this. So you do have one more story. So you said when you read the Dream Part a while ago, but you read it under some weird circumstances.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to traffic court. Well, okay, I was supposed to pay a ticket, and for speeding. Whatever, I wasn't speeding, and my husband's like, just pay it, and I said no, because I wasn't speeding. So I was like, I'm going to traffic court, and I was like, all right. So I had to really make an effort to get there, to get downtown, and this whole thing. And I was like, oh, I've got the Dream Part. I'm going to start reading this. So I walked in too early, and I guess I looked kind of innocent because I walked up to the guy and he was like, are you here for DUI or something? And I was like, no, just for speeding. He was like, oh, he said, okay, well, sit over there because you're early. And so I started reading, and like I said, I forgot how much time passed, and I was really making it through, and I was like, what is even happening? They're at the, I was also not understanding what was going on. And I was really into it. And then suddenly I looked up, and there was a line of people next to me, and they were all on their phones. And there I was with this big book, and I was like, like reading it, like writing it. And they must have been like, who is that insane person? And by the time they called us, I'd read like 100 pages.
Wow. That's the perfect Rodrigo story, though, with the cell phones and versus the person who has a book. I just remembered something. Hold on. So I came back from Europe to this nonsense, and I got this, a jury duty certificate.
Oh my God, no.
To reply to by, tomorrow. So I have till tomorrow to reply to it. But I already did jury duty like a year ago. So
then no, what is that?
But like, there's no jury duty going.
There's no jury now, no.
Like, I kind of don't want to fill it out and see if they come and summons me or something, or like
just wait.
They come and like try and arrest me.
Just wait and see. Yeah, come on. What is that? That is crazy. Jury duty.
Way. I can barely make it through a day. I can't do this. The other thing I haven't done is file my taxes because I figure like the world's all just gonna end and we don't have to. So like I'm just gonna wait. Like
you got extra time. Yeah, you got a lot of extra time.
Exactly.
Well, look, my friends say to me, like some of my friends have said, let's do like a virtual play date with our kids, and I'm like, another thing to do. That's yet another thing, and then the kids are like, can I have a snack? And I'm like, okay, snack. All right, let's do this thing. It's like every day you just have to like, dinner. Okay. It's so different because I'm doing all the same things I was doing, but not like this. Yeah. I don't know.
I have to teach on Zoom every day. And I have to, and because we had people working on our kitchen about things and like, and because the kids here, like I teach from the bedroom, the quietest space. So I'm just like curl up in bed, prop the computer on a pillow and like pontificate to like 12 little boxes for like an hour and 15 minutes. And every time I'm like, guys, this won't go the whole time because I can't really do this. Like it's really hard. There's no feedback. You guys are silent and muted. And it's like talking to myself in this room and they'll be like, an hour and 15 minutes later, I'll be like, oh shit. Like I did the whole class again. Like I just like get lost and like, I don't for a while it was like, well, I don't talk to anyone else. Like you're the only people
you might as well talk to them. Yeah.
You're everything. Explain why I hate coincidences yesterday's class. It's like, this is why coincidences suck in fiction. And this is why things are bad. But anyways, so going from traffic court to Emily Brontë. This section today that we're talking about is pages 155 through 202. We left off. So you mentioned that you didn't know what was going on and it was confused, and we talked about that a lot in the last episodes of like how, especially in the first part, things are sort of inverted, so you get the kind of explanation for what's happening at the beginning in a different way. And then with the beginning of the second part in last week's episode, we did a lot because I knew the frame. And Brian hasn't read it except up through the parts that we're at. So he doesn't know more. So I did a lot to try and frame that and explain it. And to get like that part put together so you understood like the tulpas, the books that she's writing, that is Penelope, where Penelope was, blah, 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 blah. And then today, when we get to chapter 3 of the second part, which starts on page 156, I guess, all of a sudden it all becomes much more clear. Like everything in this section is like straightforward. Like there's no need to like really, there's little hidden things that are in there or like subtly passed over, which is something that Derek Main said when he was on about how he liked that the book has like a great tragedy in it, but it's only like kind of under the surface or like just touched on in like a sentence here and there.
It's beautifully done. It is amazing.
Yep.
Like how he like draws out that central tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And misunderstandings and it's like one breadcrumb every 7 feet. How he could keep that going, I don't know.
I have no idea, but like there is like with that, like if you were reading this and if you're trying to read along, or if you're just reading on your own and you're like struggling and being like, I don't know where I am, get to this point. If you get to page, it's crazy to say this, but you get to page 156 and suddenly you're like, I have my footing now. And it's not because you figured out what's going on or what the structure is, so much as this is a chapter that's just like, it's about Penelope's obsession with Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, that's all.
There we go.
Like I remember Catch 22 is like maybe 250 pages, and I just hated it for the first 100 pages and thought, I can't finish this. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get to page 100.
Yeah.
And once I got to page 100, I was like, this is the most brilliant thing, whatever. So with Rodrigo, you can't stop that soon. You got to like keep going. You got to go to at least, like, if you're like, what? I don't understand. I mean, the book itself is already like over 500 pages. Get to at least, 150, 200.
Yeah.
And if by then you're still like, I don't, okay, but you can't stop after 50, you got to keep going.
You may not know what the overall thing is, but at least this one's very straightforward. And that you're not like, we're on a fucking moon? And what are tulpas? And who's writing it? What a dream.
I know.
Weirdly, before we get into the Brontë stuff, which I have some questions for you about that, because I haven't read Wuthering Heights since high school. Like, I will straight up admit that was 30
it's been
years,
a while.
30 straight up 30 years. Like, that's too many years to remember it clearly. So the recap of Wuthering Heights in here is essential to my memory of it. But before you get into that, the book that I just read for my World Lit class was The Society of Reluctant Dreamers by Jose Aguilusa. I think he has a name, but I can't remember it. And it's about, in part, this guy that runs a laboratory in Brazil that wants to have a machine that will capture your dreams and be able to project your dreams as you sleep. And I was like, this is weirdly familiar. Like the same. Like, this is so strange. And like it goes into a lot of stuff about dream stuff that's like similar to the dream part. It's very funny because it's not like they're like, I'm not suggesting in any way that it was like plagiarized or they're copied or anything like that. Just that it was like funny that like these two books like came at this thing in very different ways. When
did it come out?
In March 10th, in English. Like, it just came out last month, which has been fun because my students can't get a copy, so they had to read a PDF of it.
Oh, that's fun.
Talking this world that we live in is now that's what it is. It just came out in English. I think it might only be a year or two old in Portuguese as well. It's from Angola, and it treats dreams wholly differently than Rodrigo does. And so I got to explain to the class this big difference between using a dream as like a thing that happens to a character. A character has a dream, or you can talk about wanting to record a dream, or you can make art like a dream and be very sincere about it. Whereas the dream part embraces dream logic in a way that's more like a David Lynch movie and more like a actual like the dream logic, and the fact that you can create a different way of telling stories by embracing that rather than the way that Aguilusa does, where it's just like a dream exists and it's a separate thing that they just talk about. Like, it's not infecting text. Unless maybe it does. For anyone who's read that, I have a lot of questions about the nature of that, the plots of that, because I think that most of them are kind of odd. But anyways, that's a different discussion.
I feel like I was looking at that book and trying to decide if it was SF in translation or not, because it seems very familiar.
It's on the borderline, I guess, because they do things that are not real. Like, there is no machine that I don't think. I've never looked this up. I'm just going to assume this is not real.
No.
But the same thing, like, this place wants to like do experiments on people's dreams. And it's like, it's fucking exactly the same as Rodrigo's book, but with none of the consequences.
Well, you know what I was remembering about this book is long, long ago when I read books that were originally written in English. I haven't done that in years, but when there was a book that I read. I cannot even remember the title, but it was about not dream deprivation, but like straight up insomnia. And it was imagining a dystopia, like what would happen if no one could sleep. And it was like, this book wrote itself. I mean, what do you think's going to happen? Obviously everyone went crazy, but it was, that same kind of like, what would happen if we don't have that time to replenish psychologically and physically? How would people break down? And it was pretty good in that it was very much like, it seemed pretty realistic. It wasn't like everybody snapped at once. It was like a slow kind of, deterioration before they realized that, that was it. But I wish I could remember, because I remember it was like pretty good, but I guess not good enough because I can't remember what it's called. So I don't know.
There's a book that's either came out or is coming out or came out last fall. That's a woman's 1 year diary of insomnia, where she had insomnia for like a year, and it's just like that, writing that thing out. So all that. But anyways, okay, so we get to Penelope. Now, after the introductory parts, chapter 3, we get to Penelope very clearly. And she is in a nunnery. Is that correct?
Yeah, Our Lady of Our Lady of Our Lady.
Ellipses. Yeah. It's always included, and she loves ellipses. So she's there because she her house burns down in the invented part. Her son has gone missing, which is alluded to here, and we'll get to that in 1 second. And then she apparently goes to the Brontë Museum and in some way defiles it. And so they're like, oh shit, like you're in a lot of trouble. But they work out an arrangement whereby she won't be in trouble for trying to screw with the Brontë home, but instead she has to go into this nunnery and get psychological treatment and donate some money or whatever. So she's at this point in time, we learn through brief hints that she is a very popular writer. And this is what links up to what I was saying last week. I don't think we gave away too much of it, but her Tulpa books are like incredibly popular. People love them. She's far more popular than her bad brother, who writes all the crazy stuff. And she's much wider read, much more successful. He's always wanted to collaborate with her. And now she's in this, not asylum, but in this nunnery. And she is obsessed, as we learn in this. We'll go through a few bits of her biography and what's going on with her in a second. But the main gist of this chapter is we get to find out that she is 100% obsessed with Wuthering Heights. And that is her book. That is everything to her. In sort of the way that like Tender as the Night was for the different characters in the invented part. Where this is just her and it's just Wuthering Heights, period. And so this chapter, we get a whole kind of history of the Brontes, the Bronte sisters, a lot about the reception of Wuthering Heights, especially by Charlotte Bronte, who sort of like backhandedly savages it every chance that she can get. And the way that this book becomes like a singular, unique book within like the pantheon, but is at the beginning was like dismissed in various ways as being, not fully formed, wild, outrageous, blah, 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 which is really interesting too. And like where this like singularity of this book that is like unlike anything else kind of comes from and how it comes to be is really reflects off of a lot of the different motifs and ideas that have been set up through the first part of this, of like the creativity of dreams and the sort of the overall overarching question of where did books come from that's been driving this trilogy so far. So the question, let's start with the Bronte stuff. Do you remember Wuthering Heights?
I remember being extremely disturbed by it because I read it also about 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then I think I read bits and pieces here and there. And I remember thinking, WTF, I don't know what just happened. I mean, I also read Villette, which is referred to in here, which was even like, that was super depressing and bizarre. And I mean, Jane Eyre, I remember much more. I've also read it more recently. I always planned to read Anne's book.
I can't think of what it's called. It's in here though too.
Yeah, whatever it was. I never wound up reading it. But I always wanted to.
Into the third volume of Wuthering Heights is what it says in here too. I did not know, but that's interesting.
I don't know. I do remember learning a little bit about the Brontes. I might have done my own research on it just because I found it fascinating that they were, because I always thought it would be great to live like in the country because I always lived in the suburbs. And I thought, oh, it must be great, like the English countryside. And then I was like, maybe not if this is the kind of thing that goes on. So I kind of remember, I remember the feeling it evoked. And I think that's really,
I remember the atmosphere. Like I remember reading it and not really understanding how long it took people to go places. Like how they traversed felt to me like in an unimaginable distance that was still like somehow connected, like Thrush Cross Grange or whatever, and Wuthering Heights, it just seemed like it would take like days for them to get from one place to another, or like a day. And like none of it made any sense to me. But like, okay, so do you want to try and recap for anyone who is listening who has not read Wuthering Heights?
Oh God.
A 2-bit summary of Wuthering Heights.
Sure.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay. So it's basically there's this kid, Heathcliff, who's adopted. And nearby is this girl, Catherine.
Aren't they in the same house?
Are they?
I think so.
Okay, yes. Okay, they're in the same house.
Is the one who adopts
Right, but they're not related, but they're in the, okay.
Right.
Then there's this other guy, Edgar, right?
Or Linton.
Edgar Linton. And Catherine and Heathcliff are like soulmates for a long, long time. And then Catherine like gets injured and has to go live with the Lintons. And then I think she decides that she should marry Edgar instead of Heathcliff for reasons. And then Heathcliff like loses his mind. And then Catherine, does she have a daughter? She has a daughter, right? Yeah. And then she dies.
Whose name's Catherine?
It's got to be the same name so that we're all confused.
Yep,
and
Catherine.
So that's Catherine the second, as Penelope calls her. And so then Catherine dies, and Heathcliff goes crazy, and Heathcliff leaves. And then isn't there like doesn't he have a son named like Hareton or something?
Who he has a son with the woman Isabella who leaves,
right.
But he also goes away to like get enough money and success so he can come back after Catherine gets married, so that he can come back and like buy up everything, win everything back. So like then his idea is that his son will marry her daughter, and therefore he will then control all the estates, which the narrator Penelope points out is kind of fucking ludicrous. Like that's not really how property rights tend to work, but okay. Like, that's weird.
But then it's all like the next generation.
Yeah, it's like
the same shit again.
Yeah, it's like 90210 second time through or something.
Oh God, you just like I'm gonna have a nightmare now. You like 90210?
Oh my God, I remember watching when that first started. I was babysitting on the premiere night, and it premiered, and the students are freshmen in high school at that, and it was premiered in like the first week of school, and I was a freshman. I was the exact age of those kids watching that, so I was just like, this is kind of bizarre, like to have a show that's like contemporary to your experience on like what's supposed to be a beat by beat, month by month thing. Very weird. But yeah, so then Edgar dies and Linton dies, and I forget how this ends. I don't remember how the book actually totally ends, but it is told through Nellie, the maid, telling Lockwood, who comes to rent the property from Heathcliff, all about this like crazy history, and tells him the first part of it, and he's like, this is fucked up, and he leaves and comes back, and then she's like, oh shit, you missed a lot.
More stuff.
Like the mid-season finale happened while you went away back to London for a couple weeks, so that she fills them all in on it. It is in a way like Wuthering Heights might seem like a strange book to be a focal point for a Faison book, since it's usually Nabokov and Fitzgerald and John Cheever and Bob Dylan, and like there's a certain like grouping of things, and this doesn't seem to fit that. But the thing that does fit, especially for this, is that book doesn't work under necessarily dream logic, but it works under a way in which there's too many narrators kind of telling their own part. And the book has a lot of that going on in these first chapters of like, this is being told to this by this, who's dreaming who's writing whom. Like these kind of questions come up. Wuthering Heights, like just in this recap, which is why it's been so long, I don't remember like how it's actually written. But in the recap, it's like seems like a bizarre nesting of narratives that like, each sort of operate in a way that like feels almost disconnected or almost dreamlike, because they are just like, oh yeah, Heathcliff's obsessed with Catherine, and like she dies and he goes fucking mad and screams and beats up a tree and shit, and like get her out so that he can like put his lock of hair with her, knock out part of her coffin so that when he gets buried, their bones will intermingle. Like,
I know.
This book is weird. I think Wuthering Heights is weird.
Well, it's very operatic. Like, that's the thing. Opera is so over the top, and it knows it's over the top, and it gives the audience that because it knows the audience wants that. And it seems like Lockwood is, based on this recount, Lockwood is kind of boring, and he's like the first layer. Nellie is the kind of person who, like, if like she just went to the market for something, like she'd come back with a whole thing. Like, I saw this person and that person and this person, and so she tells them the story that's nested in. It's so unbelievable that you're like, this is mediated through so many people. It's like a game of telephone. But
how the information passed along is also weird. Yeah, it's almost like she's like, her telling of it is almost like, I was going to say the MacGuffin of this, but I don't know that that's right. But like, no, Lockwood's the MacGuffin. Lockwood trying to rent the thing sets this whole thing in motion, of which is telling. And like his coming to rent that is like haphazard at best. Like the story doesn't need that really, right? Like,
it was basically like, I mean, so Charlotte keeps saying that this was like a wild, crazy thing. And it's like, if it was so wild and crazy, why didn't she just write the story? Instead, she's like nesting it within different narratives in order to maybe give it legitimacy, or in order to be like, obviously this is a crazy story. I'm trying to show you how non-crazy and crazy can kind of offset each other. But I mean, from what is in Penelope's sections, it's also like, what, like, Charlotte didn't even understand Emily anyway. So, and it was, I mean, how can you be sisters and writers and not be in some sort of like, locked in some sort of jealous kind of, rivalry? I mean, of course, Charlotte seemed like the one who would definitely be like, oh, my younger sister, she writes crazy things. But that seems very petty,
There's another aspect. So aside from the book itself, one of the interesting moments in here I thought was where it's pointed out that like the Brontes are one of the first like writers as characters, and they become mythical even more so than their books for their existence. And I don't even know, like, I've never read like any of the biographies or any of that, but I know that it exists. And I know there's kind of not a cult of, but like a lot of people are very into their history and who they were and how, and all of the details of that. And they do take on a life of like, oh yeah, the Bronte sisters, rather than like each individual book. Like Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights for sure, but the other books kind of are like grouped under a different category in a way. But they're all famous because they are the Brontes. And that is interesting that in this way that the book tries to rebel against autofiction in a large, so like the writer's always like pissed about that and doesn't want everyone to think that like what he's writing is his life, and it isn't supposed to be autofiction in any way, shape, or form. This book and as well, so to add a meta layer to it, like it's not Rodrigo's autofiction, his life, it's invented. And in a way, the Brontes kind of bounce off of that too, by being characters that are kind of invented. Like there's the people that are writing their biographies and writing about them are sort of inventing different rumors, different parts of them, but it's the opposite way. Rather than saying like in their fiction, Catherine equals Emily, it's more like Emily is this new mythic figure that we've made into almost like a fictional character.
Yeah, it's a weird. Yeah, I mean they're like kind of. I mean, it's so weird because they were so like reclusive, and that adds to the to the aura of mystery. But if I could do a show and share for a minute here, I have The Life of Charlotte Brontë by Elizabeth Gaskell.
Nice.
Observe, right here. I started trying to read it a while ago, and I didn't make it past, like, I don't know, page 10. But yeah, I got it right here.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's funny because that is in here.
It's in here, and I was like, oh, I have that. And I went, like, tearing through my bookshelves, like, trying to find it. I don't know how I found it, but yeah, and it's interesting because I don't know a whole lot about Elizabeth Gaskell, but it's weird. It's a writer writing about another writer who wrote about. I mean, it just gets so complicated that you forget. Like, I mean, anytime you write a biography, it is a. I mean, you've got to pick and choose. Like, a biography is not a straight. I mean, it's impossible. So it's a fiction in itself.
There's like a really, I will never be able to drag this up from my memory in the right way, but there's a quote related to that in Jacob's Room by Virginia Woolf about biographies and telling a biography and what is selected and not. There's no way.
I read that like 30 years ago, so no.
I did an independent study a whole semester on Virginia Woolf in college, and that was the one. That's why I kind of remember this, because I read like all these books twice, and but like I kind of remember this.
I bought that book because it had a really cool painting on the front, which I only later realized was an Edward Hopper painting. And I loved Edward Hopper later than I read that book, and then I realized, and I was like, oh, Virginia Woolf and I have a very kind of strange love-hate relationship. So, yeah,
I don't know. Favorite writer for a long time. Like, I thought everything that she did was like magic. But I haven't
back and forth with
a long time.
Her. Yeah.
But anyway, so we do get a hint of what's to come in a way, where the fact that Penelope first finds out about Wuthering Heights not through the book, but through the Venezuelan soap opera version. It was
Spanish telenovela, yeah.
Novella that's basically seems to consist of Heathcliff and Catherine each yelling, "Catherine! Catherine!" In like a poorly fogged up area with fake stones and stuff. So yeah. Which is cool, but that's gonna come back in a way later if I remember correctly.
But like, she talks about how she saw it like that, and it's connected to everything's connected to her parents disappearing, or her parents not being around. And she's saying she was watching that because one of the many Rosalitas who watched her, who was a babysitter, turned it on. And yeah, she was like really attracted to it. And then she saw based on the novel, and that, I guess, legitimized it for her. So she then went and got the novel, and then learned English by reading the novel in English. So she knows it in so many ways.
There, a big shout out to Will. Let me see if I can find this. Yeah, a big shout out to Will for page 170. Yeah, 179, where she's learning to read it through the bilingual dictionary. It's Eles más myself than I am y no puedo vivir sin my life is like a mixture of like the two languages in a way that like who knows what it was in the original, and whatever. I give Will props for making that sentence work and like blending those two in such an interesting way that you can like decipher it, but like it is funny to like flip back and forth between the two languages and like one after the other, just like that.
That, I mean, I can't even imagine translating this book. I mean, I mean, they're like, even just words like, like Rodrigo is using Brontë, turns Brontë into all the different like parts of speech, like on that same page, Brontified by Penelope, and getting Brontë and like all kinds of, it's amazing. Will just did such an amazing job.
Yeah, and once you keyed into it, you'll
Yeah.
notice that all the like more, Wuthering, height,
Yeah.
all those words showing up, but like their pattern, they're sprinkled throughout the
Yeah.
chapter leading up to this. And like once like you know that, you're like, oh my God, this has all been based in there. Which reminds me that we got a comment online on Twitter, which you can always hit us up on Twitter if you have questions. You're also, if you're watching this live, feel free to ask questions in the YouTube chat. That's how last week we ended up talking about not unbuttoning our shirts a lot. And various other weird things because Patrick started smoking a bowl in the middle of our recording.
Oh Lord.
Was a thing. But we got comments. So if you ever have comments or whatever, feel free to send them in. A comment from a listener said that I don't know if I should use his name, so I'm just gonna leave it anonymous. But I'm enough of a Dylan fan to pick up on extremely subtle lyric references, and there are a ton of those in this book. Dylan references that you never flag unless you're in way deep. Quote, wasn't thinking of anything specific, unquote, in Series of Dreams several times, for example. Makes me wonder which other entire layers I've missed. And that reminded me of like, because I don't know, I'm not a huge Bob Dylan, like I don't know all the songs and all the lyrics and all the things by any means. So like that sort of thing would slide by, but like the Brontë stuff is another layer to that. And like all the like, I bet they're deeper than you might even realize, or like threaded throughout in ways that you may not see.
Man.
There's so many levels to that. Like this book is like crafted. Rodriguez doesn't write like haphazardly.
No.
Right? As wild as plots are, as like in some ways not repetitive, but like they go back to these touchstones, like the list, like the way of like referencing the same people, the Nabokovs, the Dylans, the like there's some of these things that keep coming back and you get to hit them as like touchstones. But then on top of that, it's like it feels wild and woolly, and at the same time, it's very structured. Like we found out during the first season of this with the Invented Part just how like completely locked in that book was in a way that I don't think you get once you read it very slowly and like digest it in this way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like one of those people that I've listened to like lots of Dylan music, but I only know certain songs, like deep, and I mean, that would be fascinating to find, like what kind of like Dylan language he's using. Then again, Dylan was also very, his songs are very dreamy, very not, I mean, like just like Desolation Road. It doesn't make sense, but it makes sense somehow. They're just words, but they make sense. And I don't, it's like, how did you do that?
Oddly enough, I think we skipped this last week. We didn't even talk about the new 17-minute Bob Dylan song.
I don't even know what that is. Like I saw it like in my newsfeed and I said, what?
Me too. And I was like, and then like it's not like a JFK assassination. I was like,
what?
Like, I don't know. Like I right now all I can think about is trying like I've mismanaged my anxiety with it that Mike Matheny mismanaged the Cardinals bullpen. Like I've used it all wrong and I never have a backup plan. So like I couldn't make it through anything, much less a 17-minute Bob Dylan song.
No, I didn't even know what was like. I literally felt like I had been thrown into another time and I was like, did I miss something? Was I in like was I out cold for like 3 days? I don't understand how this could just suddenly be in my newsfeed.
There are two things. Bob Dylan is a 17-minute song, and every single human being is talking about Tiger King. These are the things that exist in quarantine, which I think that show is morally bankrupt, and I have large objections to it. But that's
I went from one day I heard someone mention it, and I thought, what's that? And then every podcast, and I listen to a lot of different podcasts, every single podcast, the political ones, the art ones, the random ones, the history one, everybody's talking about it. I was like, what is happening? What is this show? And I'm like, well, if everybody's watching it, obviously I'm not going to. So
yeah, I wasn't going to either. It is entertaining, but I think it's a morally bankrupt show. I think that it's exploitative and sending a bad message. Because
so it sounds like
people like they're all very bad people. Anyways, we should loop back for this last little bit to talk about Penelope then. So we got into Wuthering Heights, which is the big book in her life. And then you can go back to that beginning part where we sort of get her story put back into place. So she recaps what happened. to her about in terms of the mantras and being able to, and like what happened with the wedding, how she ran away, she gets impregnated by her comatose husband. She mentions the green cows that she leaves with. She also finds diamonds, which isn't mentioned in here, but that is in the invented part. And you get sort of like the quick recap of there. You also get sly reference that that English readers might not know about yet, but it says that she's complaining about her brother. Penelope has read her bad brother's books, including the one on commission, in which her bad brother had the audacity and lack of respect to appropriate the karmas. The karmas who, if they belong to anyone, belong to her, transplanting them from Abracadabra to Mexico City. That is mantra. That is Frezan's mantra, which was commissioned as part of this millennial project, in which in the year 2000, a bunch of authors were commissioned to write about different cities. And like Bolaño's book, Little Lumpen Proletariat, I believe is about Rome. And that's part of the series. And Mantra is about Mexico City. And it's part of this and includes the family includes the mantras. So that's like a meta reference to Rodrigo's thing. So we get that quick recap. And then you get the sly line that's really important. Oh, I see. I've circled on like 161 heights. From what height she has fallen is like another. There's all these like little drops that come in here. But where is it? It is on page 169. You get like the core part of what with Penelope's bit. So first of all, here to recap for everyone to make it clear what happened. So all of a sudden, for Penelope, everything happens suddenly, as if she landed in the middle of a party where everyone is talking about the same thing at the same time, but telling different parts of the story. Her bad brother has a kind of psychotic break in a particle accelerator near Montreux. She burns down a house and flees, and later, still reeking with smoke, is detained at the Brontë Parsonage Museum for, quote, attempted robbery of public and private property and for disturbing the peace. And Penelope is dragged out of there the way her brother is dragged out of the Swiss Hadron Collider. Now a family tradition, it seems. This thing of being moved by force from sensible buildings for inappropriate behavior. Her publishing house, Pull Strings, though the whole episode is still a great publicity stunt, our misanthropic star author, adored by children and young adults, victim of a literary crisis from which we're certain great things will emerge. And they agree to make a generous donation to the museum in honor of the Bronte's memory, and they plan to announce her stay at Our Lady of Our Lady of Our Lady of ... So you get like that quick recap. Beautiful. But then there's the secret part here. Meanwhile, and in the meantime, that inexplicable and unforgivable thing, that thing Penelope cannot comprehend because Penelope can't remember almost anything of what happened. Penelope remembers her feet in the sand, the moon in the sky, the trees in the forest, and the water where the river mouth opened into the sea. And later, the beams of flashlights, and that for her, unnameable name in the mouths of everyone searching for and not finding that name's small yet immense owner. Penelope remembers all of that, but doesn't remember the most important thing, the most important part. Oft recap of the event. One night, at her house on the beach, Penelope went out for a walk with her little son, and Penelope returned to the beach house alone without him. And so there's like, that is the core part for her, is that she had her son and he is gone. And she doesn't remember what happened, and he is not found.
Yeah, and
and that's all we know at this moment.
Yeah, and I think there's some. I mean, there was something about, like that she feels. I don't know. I was getting the sense, reading this again, that she feels like everyone's blaming her. I mean, because she went out with him and then came back without him. And she understands why people are blaming her, but she feels like I just get the sense from reading it that she's feeling like, it's not her fault because she can't remember, but she, maybe because she writes so much, she's trying to, I don't know, find something out by writing, like maybe subconsciously she can remember what's going on, but that feeling of like being blamed is like weirdly similar. Well, I guess I don't want to spoil anything, but that feeling of the weight of blame is actually at the heart of the the thing with the disappearance of her parents, and it's, maybe it's something where it's like she wants one to displace the other. I'm not getting a sense that she's like saying like, oh, I don't remember. It seems genuine, but it seems like she also doesn't want to remember.
Right.
So she's creating a whole other universe so that she can lose herself in this other universe and not remember what happened because maybe it was traumatic or something,
And that's a moment where there's like this pushback against interpretation of the real life author into fiction, where she's like, we don't want people to think that this abandoned boy that she writes about in all of her books that are incredibly popular is based on her missing son.
Right. Yeah.
So it's another time where like the creativity versus the reality and the interpretation thing pops up. So that's where she is right now. So that's right there. The problem, if you're a writer, if you devote yourself to recounting something that doesn't exist, so it'll exist for others, that's where the lines get a little blurred.
Yeah. And so is she a young adult writer? Is that what her books are?
It says that joke. I Blu-ray past it, but like it's a very funny joke where it says the whole episode is a great publicity stunt. Our misanthropic star author, adored by children and young adults and adults.
Yeah,
like it's like it's that. It's the fact that like most adults just read YA.
Yeah, and it I mean, it just makes me think, and I feel like Rodrigo is so like tuned into so many things that he's got to know that there's this. I mean, I feel like I could say this to you, but I know a lot of people get like, "Oh," but there's this kind of insecurity that people have about reading certain YA, that then they'll go like crazy if you say, "Why are you reading YA? Like, aren't you an adult?" And it's like, "What? No, this is like a whole thing," and it's this like need to legitimize what you love. It's like, if you love to read that stuff, that's fine, but there's this feeling of like, no, this is like super important, and it's like YA means this whole thing, and it's like, it's just it's a marketing thing.
I don't know if this still exists in any widespread way, but there was that moment in time where there's the new adult section.
Oh yes. Whatever that is.
It's like YA books with different covers.
Yeah.
In a section of the store that makes you feel like you're not a child.
Yeah. I remember that. I was like, what is this? But I mean, like,
marketing.
Would the Babysitters Club, like, what would that be considered?
No way you put that in new adult. That is YA straight up.
I mean, I read that stuff when I was like a young adult, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not like, everybody can read whatever they want. It's fine, but it's like there's this weird like insane like riotous mania that goes on around these books, like the big one. What's the big one?
The one right now?
No, the one that was like really big, that with the lottery.
Harry Potter?
No.
Hunger Games?
Hunger Games. There you go. Yeah.
I know about four of these books, and those are two of them.
Yeah. Hunger Games, and there was another one, I don't know, but like
Divergent?
People get like it's like crazy. I mean, it's way more than people get for like a book that's like, I don't know, by some big author now, like an adult, whatever, but it's like there's some sort of it's some sort of energy, and like
too soon.
I don't know, it kind of makes me like tired.
Ironically, or that's a perfect segue, I guess, is that I have my quote for this week. My favorite line from this week ties exactly into that. And it's from page 171. And I just like it because I don't know, because it's something about literature that I like. And so she says, it's talking about Wuthering Heights. a book that transcends borders and languages because what it sets out and carries along and pushes through to the end of the road is a universal feeling. To have once felt a love like that, to feel love like that, to know you'll never feel a love like that. Like there's something about that part that I really like, of like the power of that book to her, and like relates to what you're saying about the YA stuff, that sort of thing can become that it's almost fantasy in a way.
Yeah.
And be like, well, yeah, these people are fucking crazy. Like straight, like Heathcliff's straight up a sociopath. Like there's not like he's like a redeeming hero. Like he tries to fuck over everyone as much as he can, and he like abuses his like his not relatives, but like the other people in his area, just like it doesn't teach a kid how to read and stuff. Like this is a sociopath. But like his passion for like this one woman that he knew when he was like 12.
Yeah.
Like the shit that you would you came in. Yeah, it could only work in this context. Like it's not. Did you happen to see that The Guardian had an article that was like the new hot trend in fiction is quarantine porn?
Really?
Quarantine erotica. I Get Off by Washing My Hands was the name of one of the books, and I'm fucking there for this. Like I think that's great. Like I want
quarantine erotica.
I decided that maybe that's my future. Nothing else in this world is gonna exist or matter. Why not? Just I like
how people.
So I can try that.
I mean, but like, how about all the people that are suddenly flooding like self-publishing platforms with pandemic? It's like.
I know that there are people out there who have written this and people who deserve to, but I don't think I want to read a quarantine diary at this moment in time.
No. And people are really trying to capitalize on it. It's like, it's not even too soon. It's like, it's still happening.
No end. Until there's an end, there's no
end. You can't write about it yet. I mean,
I had a play/novel that related to this that I really liked, and I got pretty wasted one night and called Brian and asked him to write it for me, and I explained it in great elaborate detail. And he's like, "Well, why don't you write it?" I was like, "I can't do that. Like, I'm not capable. I've got the vision. I've got the vision. You've got to be the execution. Like, I need someone to make this work. It's like the director and the cinematographer.
Right.
Like, but I can't actually function. Like, I don't know how to use a computer." Like,
well, I've often I have these grand stories that I think are like amazing and they would be so great. I can't write them. So I just want to like get a writer, but like I want to make sure my name is on there because I had the idea. They can write it. Believe me, I have thought through this. I thought, who can I ask? Like, is this even moral?
What was the Kardashian that wrote the quote unquote novel, the YA novel? It was like a Chloe or a Kyrie or a Kyle or a Kendra or whatever. I know the ghost wrote it for her, and it's so bad, and she's just like, I just write down her terrible ideas and like make them sort of functional, and every review is like, this is like the worst book ever written. like in the first review was like, yeah. Well,
people like bad books though, so.
Kyrie Irving or whatever Kardashian doesn't have any good ideas. Hot take it. 4 minutes in, 19 whiskeys and everything. The Kardashians are dumb.
The Kardashians and the Karmas are the same people.
Yes.
Like they think like, and I love the whole part about where Penelope was discussing Wuthering Heights with them, and oh man, where was it? It was so great.
You just reminded me of that too.
It was so great. They were like, wait, oh, okay, 187. They don't like anything to do with the Brontes. They find that ending with a tamed man. Oh, and they like Jane Eyre. And then really what the Karmas want for Penelope is to spend less time reading alone, which makes them very nervous. Nothing unnerves a Karma more than solitude. Nothing upsets or unsettles someone who doesn't read more than the happiness of someone reading.
Oh my God. I love that. The cameras are so funny. So funny. So do you have a favorite line?
Oh my God, I have so many. Let's see. Oh, I really liked the idea of the Trinity that keeps coming up. The fact that that there are three sisters, and so on the top of page 189. So back to what we were talking to about the sisters suddenly becoming famous.
Mm-hmm.
The three became fascinating, like everything that comes in trios: the Holy Trinity, and the three graces, and three furies, and three fairies, and three witches of Macbeth, and three daughters of Lear, and the three stooges, which was like, you got to do like a double take because you're deep into like the Shakespeare, and then you're like, wait, the three who? And then the three knocks of the ghost on the table of the medium, and the three verbal tenses, and the three possible answers to the same question, and three wishes to be granted, which is so great because my kids insist on watching Aladdin. We've now watched
Oh no.
the original and the remake, each one twice in 2 months.
Well, Jesus. So I watch Bolt every day.
Really?
I watched Bolt every day for 2 years, I think. I managed to not accept any part of it into my mind aside from one line where she says, "I'm Mindy from the network." That is the only thing I is I'm Mindy from the network. And the rest of it I managed to just block out. But it is the only movie that Alex wants to watch.
Listen,
Bolt.
When the boys were his age, okay, I watched Fraggle Rock is pretty great, I admit, but it was on because I turned it on because that's all they wanted all the time. I speak entire episodes of Fraggle Rock sometimes.
Fraggle Rock is your Wuthering Heights.
It is my Wuthering Heights. Not that I wanted it to be.
If you ever end up in a nunnery because you tried to burn something down, you can live.
It's because of that. I mean, I quote it so often that even my husband, who's the one who told me to show it to the boys, because my husband had watched it, I never watched it. I was a Sesame Street only girl. And I watched, and I'm like, it's like burned into my brain. For 2 years, every single day it was just like, and when you got twins, the whole thing about screen time, should we do screen? It's like, no, there's screen time.
Yeah. With even one, like I know I have parent friends who are like, never, and it's like, yeah, go fuck yourself. Like, because up at 4:30, it's like, this is what YouTube is for. YouTube is so that my kid can watch this and I can rest because it's 4:30 in the morning.
Thank the Lord for screens.
I think that's probably why they beat me and drugged me all the time, was because like I was up at 4:30 in the morning. There's no YouTube. They're like, well, give him drugs, roofie that kid, get that kid back asleep. That's a bad place to end, but that's probably where we should end. Where should people? Do you want to plug anything, or where should people find you online?
So you can. Since the coronavirus, I have not been posting as much on Twitter and Facebook, but in the off chance I do, I'm at rcordas, RCORDAS, and I mostly tweet about all things translation, SF and translation, and going crazy with, homeschooling, and the website sfandtranslation.com, which I am trying to keep up to date. And I'm on Facebook. There's a speculative fiction and translation Facebook page. Again, not updating it as often because I think everyone understands.
Anything.
I'm trying, but
all those things.
Whatever.
This is the last thing I want to say before we are long, but like whatever, people are still watching. So there's this weird element of like during the day I'm like sort of annoyed that there's nothing to read about on my newsfeed or my phone aside from virus stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time I'm like, I don't want to produce that content. And like I don't want to be the one to like, I don't want to be here trying to like write something that's like free from the current situation. And anyway, so I don't know how to blog. I don't know how to write anymore. Like I have something that was going to be, because I was going to write a book and I don't think it's going to happen anymore. I think it got side railed by this whole thing. And like, I think it's just going to be tabled for the time, but I have a very long part of it for the first chapter that I might just run on our website. I just have to clear it with the translator first, but that would be like a way to do something. But otherwise I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know how to do this right now.
I mean, that's the thing. I've just been like revising things.
Yeah.
I haven't written anything like original. I haven't even written a review of anything since this all started.
Me neither.
And I can't imagine doing it. I haven't even had time to read. Like, I thought I would have time to read. I don't, like, I have weird like pockets of time, and I can't get anything done. And then sometimes I do, and then it's like this one thing, but I didn't do the other thing, and then it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this really is like the biggest problem about the coronavirus is that when we're done, it's going to be the survivors are like 100% alcoholics. It'll be like 2020, the year I got good at alcohol.
The year I was able to like drink throughout the day and seem fine.
Yeah, the year in which I realized day drinking is totally okay.
Listen, at the Seder, at the Seder tonight, I was drinking Manischewitz wine, but I was like putting it back. I'm like, this is Manischewitz wine. This is like, I'm putting this. I was just like, whatever. I'm like drinking. Everybody's like, I can't see you on the Zoom, and I'm like pouring some more.
Yep. Well, we saw this at the beginning. So anyway, so thank you all for listening. We will be back next week. I don't know who our guests will be at this point in time. And I don't have the pages open as to what we're reading to, but it's probably around 240 or so. It'll be in the show notes, so you can check it out there. But we will be back next Wednesday to have a little bit of fun and try and bring a little levity to the quarantine situation. I keep saying quarantine, I guess lockdown is more accurate. But I think we go to 254 next week because that's the end of the second section. So that, this lockdown, getting to people. We're going to keep trying to entertain you doing bits and talking about books. So tune in. If you have any comments, leave them on iTunes. Email me at chad.post@rochester.edu, or you can always DM me or whatever. I kind of check things. I don't really look at Twitter very much anymore because it just basically is like a bummer. And I know everyone's trying not to be a bummer, but sorry, it's still a bummer. So I just stay away until I get drunk enough that I just go on and reply randomly to whatever thing I see. So if you get a random weird response on Twitter, that's what's happening. So anyways, thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.